right, so welcome to this inaugural version of the Claytonix Media Splash, presented by Claytonix Productions. I'm your host, as always, Clayton Christopher Wood. The first topic we're going to discuss today and discuss with our guest in a few minutes is the subject of indie films and trying to break the cycle of the tagged franchises that pretty much control the cinema world. We can't do that as indie filmmakers because we don't have the rights, the licensing, or the money, but we can make original content that's good and new and fresh, and so stuff that Hollywood cannot do right now, that we can do. That's why I feel that television is really beating film in this aspect right now, because they're coming out with so much original content, and we're just, in the film world, is just stuck in this tagged franchise thing, rebooting film after film after film. And that's really how I feel about the whole situation. So right about now, it's time to introduce our first guest, and we will get her opinion on the tagged franchises versus indie films argument. So without further ado, let's do it. I'm here with the wonderful, beautiful Arianna Tysinger.
Hello.
She's an actress, model, freak show artist, comedian, etc. And we're going to be talking about tagged franchises versus indie films, and we'll mention her career and what she plans to do next, and the future of film. Good morning, good morning, Arianna. How are you doing?
Morning, evening, and afternoon. I am doing well.
All right. So, how would you describe yourself if anybody just come up to you and asked you, what you do? What kind of...
Oh, I would say I am a professional weirdo. So predominantly what I do is film and stage acting, and I like to play the characters that most people, I guess, necessarily wouldn't want to, because most people want to be pretty and glamorous, and I want to be bloody and just messed up. Yeah. Just because I think that associates with the freak shows as well. Hammering a nail in my face. Like, what girl grows up and thinks, hey, I can fit in a suitcase. That's what I'm going to do for a living.
There you go. There's nothing wrong with that.
So, professional weirdo is how I describe myself.
Awesome, yeah. I feel like I'm a semi-professional weirdo, but I am a weirdo nonetheless.
Nice.
So, back on the subject of, I was talking earlier about tagged franchises versus indie films, because I feel as if the tagged franchises are really taking over Hollywood, and there's not really new stuff. There's just like Ghostbusters 4.5, and and new more Disney reboots, or they're rebooting the same movies but making them, live action or reanimation or whatever. And it's kind of, disheartening, just because a lot of people don't want to go on movie dates anymore, or do the classic things that we used to do, because it's just the same stuff.
Just the same stuff. I completely agree with that. And I think the reason why that the reboots keep happening, they started early on just because they knew that they could fill seats and get more profits to make cooler movies, but now that Hulu and Netflix are creating original content for much cheaper budgets, and they're hiring new actors and bringing in new faces, now it's slowly going to reestablish creating new media, and that's why larger film productions are just like, hey, we got to do whatever we can to fill the seats. Let's just do what we do in the old school.
Yeah, because on television now, they're getting actors who were primarily motion picture actors who are now on, Netflix series and Amazon series and stuff like that. So.
Oh, yeah. So it's going to cross over, and I think that hopefully that larger screen productions, and they're still doing some really cool independent stuff that you haven't seen, and creating original content, but it's just not as advertised as seeing the remake of Pocahontas or of Beauty and the Beast done fifth time.
Yeah, exactly. They got to reboot Batman every 3 years.
Just so you don't forget about Batman.
Yeah, exactly.
Just because apparently he's not that iconic that you could forget,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't get it, but that's a very good point, because that's a lot of indie filmmakers are discouraged because they can't do big budget things and a lot of effects and stuff like that. But I'm like, we can still do stuff. We can still make a heck of a good story and some stuff that's low budget and is good, fresh, not just redo after redo after redo.
Because I like the films where you can describe it to someone and they're like, oh, I don't think I've seen that film, or instead of being like, oh, it's this action film where there's a superhero and people are like, oh, well, which one? But if you describe something like, oh, this is a film about what happens in the afterlife, or this is a film about a lesbian that loses her girlfriend and works for her father, like, how many people can say that they've done that, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And people haven't seen a lot of those either. So
No, they haven't seen them.
Yeah.
Well, one of them hasn't come out yet, which is why no one's seen it. I've barely seen it, but that's because I have to do the voiceover for it.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome. Like, that's what we want to see is more just new stuff, and we want to have the opportunities, like, come from that.
Yeah.
All right, so the next thing we'll talk about is how we met each other, and it's really interesting because it's not like I just, like, casted for an actor and then, you know, she got the role. It was kind of, like, different than that, but I'll let you explain.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, speaking of independent films, you know, like, that was as indie as it got.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he put out a casting notice for something, and I messaged you, and I was like, hey, how do I get this part? And you're like, first, I gotta meet you. Like, I want to meet you as a person, not as an actor. So we met at a Barnes & Noble. I think it was at Crabtree.
Yeah.
And we just, instead of, like, going inside to the Barnes & Noble to talk, we stood outside the doorway.
Yeah, I don't even know why
like,
we did that.
A 10-minute conversation as we were walking in and out. And I think that was the funniest interview I've ever done for a part.
Yeah, we just talked about, like, the lunar eclipse.
Yeah, we didn't, like, actually talk about the film. We just talked about literally anything else.
Yeah. And then, like, after that meeting, though, I was like, okay, well, we've got our person. And she was like, I can do makeup, too. So that was, like, a plus. Because I was like, okay, so we got, like, makeup and an actor. That's 2 for the price of 1.
Yeah, I can do the basics of special effects, but I can't do, like, what some of my friends can do. Where they can...
Yeah.
Like, one of my friends currently, I think he made a cast molding of someone's hand and of someone's head and made it to where it looked like they were decapitated and removed. And I was like,
that's awesome.
Dude, more power to
you. I
I
need to get in touch with him.
But I can make you look bruised.
Yeah,
like,
there you go. That's better than I can do.
Bruised and bleeding, that's what I got.
Well, that's what I did when I was a kid. I used to, like, sneak in my mom's makeup drawer and put all this, like... I would film movies by myself. So I would go, like... take the camera and just play every character, and I would just, like, change up with makeup and all kinds of stuff.
Those are the best movies, though. Like, the childhood movies. Like, my sister and I, we did this movie called The Beanie Baby Killer, because we lived in Sanford on 24 acres of just trees. So we didn't have neighbors, and the neighbors that we had in the distance enjoyed shooting guns. So, you know, making movies wasn't what they wanted to do. Yeah. And we had the over-the-shoulder camcorder with the VHS that you had to put in.
Yes, classic.
And eventually we got one of the digital ones, and the digital is when we shot the Beanie Baby Killer. And it's just videos of me running over animals and putting them in microwaves. I'm like stuffed animals, not actual. Jesus.
Yeah, well, we're not going... Yeah, no animals were harmed in the making of that movie.
And even the Beanie Babies, when I turned on the microwave, I took them out beforehand because I have a special soft spot in my heart, you know, for all things, living or stuffed.
All right. And, that is true, because when I was... young, me and my sister made a film called Pirates of the West Indies.
See, that sounds cooler than Beanie Baby Killer.
Yeah, but we, like, locked ourselves out of the house accidentally, and all we had was the camera. And it was, like, plugged in to just the wall outside.
Nice.
So we had it... We could only film in one spot. So we just started filming all the stuff, and then the rest of the day I was sitting on the porch with a pirate wig on... waiting for our parents to get home.
Yarg.
And I remember this guy was walking, his dog came by, and he was like, hey, look, Molly. He talked to his dog's name was Molly. He's like, look, he's got a cat on his head. He's got a cat on his head, Molly. And we were just, I had like this mustache and stuff drawn on. Like, I had a mustache and beard drawn on. And it was crazy. But
I'd have been like, look, Molly, your owner's a douche.
Yeah, he was, too. He was not a good person. But yeah, that's just the funny things about, like you said, the Beanie Babies and the Pirates of the West Indies. Like, those are some pure films, and then indie really grows out of that. You know, you do that as a kid, and then you get into what you're doing now.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Because I don't think that I would be comfortable with doing film or any kind of acting if my sister and I hadn't done what we did.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. All right, so the next thing I like to ask you, and it's what a lot of people ask me all the time, and I really didn't find an answer until like film school. Because I was like, I guess this is my favorite movie.
Is it the movie about driving?
Yeah. You know it. You know it. My favorite movie is American Graffiti, and it's it doesn't have much of a plot. It's basically like a bunch of teenagers driving around the night before they're leaving.
Is that an independent film?
Yeah, it is an independent film.
So that's a great starter for independent films. Like,
Yeah.
that's a great classic of it. I will say that in watching it when did we watch it? This year? Last year?
It was last year.
So watching it in 2018 as someone who has seen cinema grow, it was kind of hard for me to get into it. But then thinking about it as a classic, as a standpoint, like from when it came out.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, that's true. No,
especially as an indie.
Yeah, because I had to watch it a couple times anyway. And the reason I watched it in the first place is because I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and it was George Lucas's second film he ever made, second feature film he ever made.
Oh, nice.
And it was shot in 28 days, which
nice.
which was really
like
impressive.
When you learn the backstories of most independent films, you get really impressed.
Yeah, you're like, wow,
I didn't know
they did
that.
Yeah, it was a low budget. It was shot in 28 days. The actors in it were Ron Howard, Richard Dreyfuss, Harrison Ford, Cindy Williams, I think, but they weren't really known actors at all to that point.
The beauty of independent is that, like, people just keep growing and trickling and making their name present while doing what they like.
Yeah, exactly.
But like you said about having to watch it, I'm pretty sure that if I watched it a second and third time, I'd be like, wow, this is a very great film. Because the first time I watched it, I was tired, too. As I am most times whenever I watch movies, but strangely enough. But it's like Napoleon Dynamite. That's a film I had to watch a couple times. Yeah. And I saw the beauty of it afterwards.
Yeah,
because the first time
film.
I was like, what is this?
Yeah, what?
And then the third time I was just rolling everywhere.
yeah, and that's a great example as well. So what is your favorite movie? We talked about mine. What is your favorite film?
So films that I have two that I normally go to whenever I talk about favorite films. So a film that I could watch again and again is The Birdcage.
The Birdcage, all right.
Yeah, with Robin Williams and Nathan Lane. Just because it's a good film for its time. It still stands true now when it talks about the LGBT community. But it's also hilarious and funny and shows drag performances at its roots. And it's just a really cool film.
Yeah, I mean, you can't beat Robin Williams.
Absolutely. And them as a couple, it was just perfect. I was like, you guys are such a beautiful couple. And they didn't stereotype gay couples.
That's great. That's
especially
awesome.
For the time that it came out. And the shots that they have in it for the time that it was filmed, insane. But from a favorite film that I truly can just enjoy and sit through in its entirety and not get distracted, I think is The Truman Show.
Okay, cool.
And that also is a unique film of itself, where it's a reality show with Jim Carrey not knowing that he's in a reality show for his entire life. That's nuts.
Yeah, that is crazy. That's one I gotta watch again because it's been a long time, and that one was really crazy. I was like, what?
Yeah, and that one kind of touched bases with a psychological disorder. I think it's called imposter syndrome, where it's like you don't feel like anything's real.
Oh, yeah. I've heard it.
But whenever he realizes, like, how messed up do you think he was whenever he walked out that door into the real world? Because he spent his whole life in this bubble, just having people told what to say and how to act and be friendly. And then if you leave that bubble and go out to the real world and see the messed up societies that we have and
exactly
violence, and
it's like what you think and then what's actually happening, and that's like the two different like spectrum or ends of the spectrum, which is really crazy to be.
Oh yeah, and it's comparable to a lot of things, like whenever you leave your hometown to go to college. The story about the Buddha, whenever he wasn't exposed to violence until I think he was a teenager, and then he saw violence for the first time, someone die, and he didn't know what that was, and they tried to hide it from him. Wow. So it goes into like really depths that maybe most people don't think about, but I do.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
Some people are like, oh, it's just Jim Carrey being Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, it's one of his best pieces, because not only was he comedic, but he was serious, and
Yeah, this is another movie of him, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which
Another
I
good one.
love with him, which, you know, because you're thinking of him to be crazy Jim Carrey, but he's actually, like, really good, really serious. He's got the Jim Carrey moments, as always, which are great, but it's really a serious movie. It's him and Kate Winslet, which is crazy. I didn't even see it till I was in film school, but I fell in love with it immediately.
Oh, yeah.
I will caution anybody who's listening not to watch it if they're going through like a serious breakup or anything, because it's not that kind of movie. You want to make sure you're in like a regular, you know, a pretty regular relationship and not, you know... And
we're just straight single.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, if you're going through a breakup, watch Birdcage.
There you go.
Because it's a film that you want to watch again and again.
Yeah, there we go. Awesome.
Yeah. And if I don't see you later, good evening, good afternoon, and good night.
And that's going to do it for this inaugural edition of Claytonix Radio. I will see y'all next week. Peace.